the guidance and inspiration from our benefactors as well. We pray, dear God, that the teachings of our Master Jesus Christ permeate the hearts and souls of the great leaders of this world in this moment of so much torment, that they may choose to unite to end all the wars, to end poverty for better distribution of the wealth, for peace to prevail, that all hearts and minds, receiving the peace and the teachings of Christ, and may we all live in accordance to his teachings. Grateful for this opportunity, we ask permission to start this meeting. So be it. Well, good morning, everyone. Today, can everybody see the screen?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. So, right, maybe I'll ask you to read when I ask you to read, of course. Is that be okay?
Okay, yes.
Sure. Um, Today is second Sunday, the day that we studied the gospel according to Spiritism. We have completed the book, and I wanted to have a conversation about the birth of Jesus Christ and Christmas. I thought it would be a very easy task. Talk about Christmas, the birth of Jesus, will be plenty of material available for us to talk about. But it's not that easy. If we go to the four main books of the codification, if you look for the birth of Jesus, if you look for celebration of Christmas, what do you think we'll find? The answer is nothing. There is nothing in the four main books of the codification that deals with the topic of the birth of Jesus. I think I have my own personal opinion of why that's so, and perhaps you will share that by the end of this very short lecture. It's going to be short, not a lecture, I'm sorry, a conversation. I hope to be a conversation. And hopefully we'll be able to have some questions at the end. So as I looked and looked for topics of Christmas in the codification, there is only really two things written by Kardec. In posthumous work, he dedicates a chapter that is called The Study of the Nature of Christ. And in there, item 8, he has a topic is prediction of the prophets in relation to Jesus, which basically goes to the first revelation, the so-called Old Testament, and get a series of prophecies that announces the coming of the Messiah, the promised Messiahs, the Savior. And there's quite a few messages from different prophets that, with accuracy, prophesied the coming of the Messiah. And Kardec put that in posthumous work. The other thing that we have from Kardec, or published by Kardec, is in the Spiritism Review, April 1863. There is a message called Christmas Party. or a Christmas party. And we will read this message soon. But this is it. This is it that we have dealing with the birth of Jesus Christ. This is it that we have with the historical aspect of the birth of Jesus, so to say. If you go, of course, to the Gospel of Luke, and you'll see why also, there is a lot of all that we know basically of the birth of Jesus is in there. There are some historical books that of history itself, the history of civilizations that mentions the birth of Jesus, that confirms basically everything that was in the gospel, that it is in the Gospel of Luke. There are some historians who actually wrote about the birth of Jesus, that wrote about the census that Julius Caesar demanded for all of the empire. The reason that Joseph have to go to Bethlehem and all those things, right? But outside that, we don't find much except for the Gospel of Luke. As a source for getting some of these informations, I found something in one online source that is called a Bíblia do Caminho. It's a Brazilian wonderful work that was done, that they have a collection of basically everything that was written on Spiritism and about Spiritism and of Spiritism. Should be able to find in that wonderful work. Perhaps is the most, perhaps as much as I know, the best source for find information regarding things related to Spiritism. I use that for some things. Dr. Alexandre Fontes da Fonseca published a very nice, short, but very nice publication called Christmas in the Spiritist Codification. And there is a lecture of Raul Teixeira from 2002 that he gave in the state of Paraná. It's a long lecture, it's about an hour and a half, but it's wonderful, it's fantastic. I collect some information from that lecture as well. And of course, I used historical and other fonts to make sure that the things that he said that there was in part, not challenging how Teixeira would not be stupid enough to do that, but just make sure that it's in parallel, it's together with the history outside of Spiritism as well. I think that's important when we are talking about things, because we could say that it's revelation via mediumship, but if it's not, and someone speaks of historical content, we should be able to look at other sources to validate those information before we pass it around. And everything that Teixeira said is in accordance with the historians, the publication that we have about the Roman Empire, about the time of the beginning of Christianity. This is a very short lecture, so if anybody has any questions, any comment, please do so. I put over here this Spiritist point of view. It's really my point of view of it. Of course, the information that I'm presenting, I checked, but there's a lot of opinions also, and if anyone has a different opinion, I'll be more than willing to hear it. And if I say anything that goes different from what you know from history, please make the correction for all of us, okay?
Okay.
So we start with what Kardec has presented so far to us. And again, when I go to Postman's work, all he brings to us is the predictions and prophecies announcing the coming of the Messiah. That is item 8 of his studies of the nature of Jesus Christ. And I just collect some that he collected. Basically, this is a copy of what is in the book. Some of the prophecies from, let's say, like the first one for Zechariah. And could you read for us, Zoraida?
Yes. Okay. Prediction and prophecies announcing the coming of the Messiah. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout out loud, O daughter of Jerusalem. See, your king is coming to you. He is just and has salvation. Lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the fall of a donkey. He will proclaim peace to the nations. His dominion will extend from sea to sea, from the river to the ends of the earth. Zechariah 9:10. I will see him, but not now. I will behold him, but not close. A star will come out of Jacob. A scepter will rise out of Israel. It will strike the temples of Moab and destroy all the sons of Seth. Numbers 24:17. Giving the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel. Isaiah 7:14. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful, Consoler, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Surnames of Jesus. That is, his government may increase, and there may be no end of peace upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with righteousness from the henceforth ever forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. Isaiah 9:6-7.
We see for this collection, the selection by um, Allan Kardec, that he looked that all those prophecies indeed came to realization. But the one that impressed me the most, the one that's my favorite over here, is one for Isaiah in 53, because it reflects with tremendous accuracy the life of Jesus, the man lived while with us as incarnate, and perhaps now pretty much surely in my mind, it still goes through today as the Christ who continues to be with us, to continue to shepherd us, await us, to use our intelligence and free will to follow his path. So to me, this is the prophecy that it's the most impressive, in my personal opinion. Zoraida?
Yes. He will rise like a green bush, living in the ingratitude of a barren land, where there will be neither grace nor beauty, loaded with reproach and despised by men. All will turn their faces away from him, covered with ignominy, and he will not deserve consideration, for he will carry the heavy burden of our guilt and our sufferings, taking upon himself all our pains. You will presume in his figure a man bowing under the weight of God's wrath, but it will be our sins that will cover him with bloody wounds, and his wounds will be our redemption. We are an immense lost flock, but to gather us on the path of God, he will bear the weight of our iniquities. Isaiah 53.
Thanks. I think it's worth to mention that Bosman's work although we can say it is a work of Allan Kardec, was not really put together by Allan Kardec, right? These are all notes that he had that people had found of him after his death, and they put all those notes, all those works together, and put this book up. So we don't even know if Kardec really had an intention to publish those notes as a book, had an intention of creating another book with all those notes that were found. But it is interesting that he did that work, in the study of the nature of Jesus. In it, he uses the Old Testament to bring the prophecies um, of the coming of the promised Messiah. And it's tremendous accuracy that those prophecies came about, especially this one here uh, of Isaiah.
Spiritism Review, April 8, 1863. Message from St. Louis received in the Spiritist Society of Tours, December 24th, 1862.
Okay, so you're going to see now a message that was also published again in the Spiritist Review as the last and only thing done by Kardec in reference of the birth of Christ. Interesting to notice that the message was received um, the day before Christmas, December 24th, 1862. It was only published in April. Of course, you understand the logistics. Even with today's technology, there will be no time to publish that message received on December 24th in the magazine of December, right? But I personally keep imagining why in April, why by towards the middle of the year when the the thinking, the talk about Christmas, about the birth of Jesus, is pretty much out of our minds in our busy lives. Kardec was very methodical. Kardec was a man that paid attention to all the details. I I can't help but thinking of why he wait or why he placed this message so far distant from the days of Christmas. Why not wait until December of 1863 or perhaps January of 63? I don't know the logistic. Again, it's to put out a publication. If even today there is some formality, some difficulties, at the time of Kardec could be a lot more complex. Perhaps he didn't have an alternative, but the little that I know of Kardec, I think that everything he does is with a purpose, with an objective, and when he chose to put this message received by received in December 24th, psychography, of course. The day before Christmas, he waited until the middle of the year, April, to put the message out. It's a very nice message called the Christmas Party. And Zoraida.
Yes. It is tonight that the Christian world celebrates the birth of the child, Jesus. But you, brothers, you must also rejoice and celebrate the birth of the new doctrine. You will see it grow like a child, like him. It will enlighten mankind, showing them the path to be traveled. You shall soon see the three kings asking this doctrine for the help they need not to find in the former ideas. They will not bring in sense and method, but will kneel before the new ideas of Spiritism. Don't you see the shining star that must guide them? Hence, courage, brothers, courage. You will soon be able to, together with the whole world, celebrate the great party of regeneration of humanity. The seed of this doctrine has been entrenched in your heart for a long time, brothers. Today, however, it will blossom up to the light with the help of a sturdily planted tutor that will not allow the feeble branches to bend over. It will grow daily with the help of this providential support and will become the tree of divine creation. You shall harvest the fruit of that tree as your brothers who are hungry and thirsty of the sacred faith. Oh, show this fruit to them and scream from the bottom of your heart. Come and share with us the fruit that feeds our spirit and alleviates our physical and moral pains. But do not forget, brothers, that God made you fervent with the first seed, that the seed grew up and already became a tree capable of bearing fruit. There is still work for you to do to transplant the branches. Before that, make sure that the tyrant to receive the seed is right, that it does not hide a layer with a rodent worm that can devour that has been entrusted to you by the master. St. Louis.
It was a very powerful message. I think especially at the time of Christmas was to read it as a spiritist. It's very interesting and appropriate that St. Louis marry the birth of Jesus with the arrival of the promised consoler, the promised consoler that fulfills the promise of Jesus to send the Spirit of truth to remind us of the things that he told us and we forgot, and to complement on his teaching, bring to us things that he could not bring at the time that was incarnate with us because we're not ready for it. And St. Louis in this message say that the seed of this doctrine has been trenched in your hearts for a long time, brothers. It should be a long time, brothers. Meaning that if you are now here receiving, open to this doctrine, it's likely not something that happened in this incarnation that just fall upon us by gratuity of destiny. It's something that we have been worked on it already, that we had made ourselves ready for it. It's not a gift from God, it's a merit of ours. But with the merit, it comes responsibility, right? And he says, do not forget, brothers, that God made you fermented the first seed, that the seed grow up and already become a tree capable of bearing fruit. That I hear this important part, there is still work for you to do. There is still work for you to do. To transplant the branch. Before that, make sure that the terrain to receive the seed is right, that it does not hide a layer with a rodent worm that could devour what has been trusted to you by the master. I think this paragraph from St. Louis is very powerful, putting us the responsibility, giving us the merit, putting the responsibility upon us, not only to spread the good news, but being very careful of where you're going to plant the seeds. Not yet all soils are ready to receive. That too much light can hurt the eyes of those who are not ready to receive it as well. It's something that we have to be very reasonable, very careful on how to do what is up to us to do, to spread the good news, but being careful to do it the right way.
In the New Testament.
Yeah, so it's okay. Thanks.
Yep.
So if you go with the New Testament here, I know that some people on the phone cannot read, but I will say everything that is written here, even if I don't read it straight as it's written here, okay? So if you don't have access to the screen, I promise you're not missing anything, except my misspellings.
Okay.
So in the New Testament, we have two evangelists who wrote about the birth of Jesus. Matthew, but Matthew explored it from the arrival of the Messiah. Matthew was really concerned with the coming of the teacher, the guide, the shepherd, our Savior, not really concerned with the actual birth of Jesus after to the actual time of delivery, so to say, of the baby that was about to be born. The few days before, the early days of Jesus, Matthew took it more of purely of the moral value of the coming of the Messiah, so to say. Luke, on the other hand, and is perhaps the only evangelist who wrote extensively about the birth of Jesus. He's the one who bring to us the informations about Mary and Joseph, who bring to us the trip that they had to take to Bethlehem. They spoke of the place of birth of Jesus, the manger. He spoke of the apparition of the angel Gabriel announcing the coming of Jesus through Mary. He speaks of the visit that Mary had with Elizabeth when Elizabeth was like 6 months pregnant with John the Baptist. And Elizabeth reveals to Mary that at the moment that Mary, in early pregnancy, enters the room, the baby, John the Baptist, moved inside of Elizabeth's womb in a sign of recognition of the Messiah that is to come, the Messiah that was up to John the Baptist, at that time 6 months in his intrauterine life, had already recognized the coming of the Messiah, and being that we know John the Baptist was one responsible for the preparation for the for the people of Israel for the teachings that was about to come from Jesus. So the Gospel of Luke has a historical, so to say, value. And again, if you go to books of history, not books of religion, not of books of theology or anything like that, purely history, study of the history of the Roman Empire, those who mention that time in the Palestine, they will concur the facts that Luke presents as a historical value in his gospel. But of course, it carries tremendous moral value as well, right? And you ask why Luke? Why did Luke paid so much attention to this? If you remember from the book Paul and Steve, Paul of Tarsus has become good friend with Luke. They traveled together, and Luke was one of perhaps the only more educated with formal education of the disciples. Could write very well in Greek, as could Paul. And Paul asked Luke to listen. Go and find Mary. She's still alive. You need to find out while she's still alive and well to give us information about the coming of Jesus. This is something very important. We know that for tradition, the Jewish people paid good attention to history, to family tree, or those kind of things. And it was important, all realized that nobody knew anything about nothing was written about the time of the birth of Jesus. And Paul understood the necessity, the need of doing this research, so to say. And what is the best source of research, if not the mother of the one that you're trying to know about? So Luke went and interviewed Mary and got all the information that he presents in his gospel, especially chapter 2, of pre-pregnancy, the encounter of the angel Gabriel, the pregnancy, the necessity to go to Bethlehem, the manger, all those information that comes that we know, all the celebration that is part of the Christmas tradition comes from Luke in his gospel, because he was the one who got all those informations from Mary.
Okay.
We are not going to discredit in any way the book of Luke for being having only historical value. Again, it's very important that the moral teachings are extremely important. And the reason I'm saying this is because I personally asked, why didn't Kardec pay more attention to it? And again, very personal. My answer to this question would be that Kardec was really concerned with the moral teachings. And all those moral teachings associated with the birth of Christ that are there, they are very important, very valuable. Jesus spoke of it himself later in a different way. Not to use himself as an example, not to use himself or his birth as an example, but teaching all those valuable lessons, moral lessons associated with his birth. For example, we think of Mary, her devotion, her worship to the God, the resignation for the will of the Father, when he basically tells Gabriel, once Gabriel gave him the message that she would receive the Messiah in her womb, you say, let it be done according to the God's will. That she is a servant, let it be done in accordance with the God's will. When I was preparing this, I have put a bunch of notes with the quotations of Mary, but unfortunately, when I present it here, I cannot find those notes, and I'm gonna look for it now because I'm not very good with this PowerPoint presentation. It should be in the bottom of my screen over here, but I cannot find, and I'm not gonna waste time looking for it now. So we don't have the exact quotation as it of Mary, but basically what Mary said was, let it be done in accordance to the will of God. Let it be done in accordance to your word, that I'm just a servant at your hands. There we start the lessons of humility, of proper worship, of proper resignation to the will of God. We have give to Caesar what Caesar's and to God what's God's, represented on the trip to Bethlehem. The Caesar decided there was necessary to do a census, of course, to collect more money. and everybody had to go to their land of birth for that census. And since um, Joseph was from the family of Levi, and the family of was from Bethlehem, he need to go. He need to live in Nazareth, travel about 200 kilometers with a very pregnant at the time Mary on the back of a donkey to go to Bethlehem for the necessary census. That is a showing of obedience to the laws of the land. It is an obedience to the teachings given to Caesar what Caesar's and to God what is God's. And it shows the fact that we go back to the message of to the prophecy of Isaiah that he would kind of be Jesus would kind of be rejected, and the fact that he could not find one single room or one single accommodation in the whole Bethlehem for the couple with a pregnant woman shows right there the beginning of the hardship that Jesus would encounter, could even find a room for his birth. Was being rejected even before the delivery. And he had to, with humility, be delivered in a manger. In a manger, I'm sure everybody knows, but we have to mention, is basically the tank like that is used to feed animals, right? Um, where you put there the food for the animals to come and eat. That is called a manger, from mangiare, from the Italian, from mangarere, I believe, from the Latin, to eat. So there was a place where the animals come to eat, that they just transformed in a tiny crib, so to say, to place Jesus after the delivery. In itself, a very important moral teachings right there of humility, that it's not the pedigree, it's not the name that you carry, it's not the school that you went to, it's not where you were born that defines a man, but a man is defined by his moral intellectual character. And Jesus is the utmost example of this. So you have to many very important moral lessons around the birth of Jesus. And the reason Kardec did not go there, in my personal opinion, is because all the lessons was exemplified by the master himself in his 3 years of teaching. So there was no need, in my opinion, to repeat um, those all those teachings that Jesus bring himself as an adult. Any questions, any comments so far?
There is a question from Ebony in the chat, Elmo.
Yeah, I'm not looking to the Jata, so we're gonna have to use voice, please. Because again, the presentation, I'm not very good with the spoken presentation.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, there is a question from Ebony in the chat.
Okay. Let me see if I can open it.
You want me to read it?
I got it.
Okay.
No, actually, I don't. No, I can see the message. What I can, what is this? No, you can read for me, John. Cannot read it.
Okay. I have a question Do we have any clarity from the Spiritist literature about the nature of Jesus' conception, whether it was actually miraculous, as is interpreted by some Christians, or natural? The book of Luke describes Joseph deciding to leave Mary when he found out that she was pregnant and was convinced by an angel not to. I think this adds to the idea that perhaps Jesus' conception was in fact miraculous and not according to the natural laws.
Yes, in Spiritism, we do not believe in miracles. We believe that there are natural laws that we still do not understand. I was going to mention before that that don't want to go through this question of the virginity or non-virginity of Mary. I think is a very long topic that deserves its own place. But the answer is Spiritism does not believe in miracle. Mary did not only had Jesus, had other child as well. As much as I know in Spiritism, we cannot say absolutely, okay, if Mary was virgin or not, but in accordance with the natural laws, we know that the pregnancy requires the impregnation of a zygote into the womb of a woman to fertilize an egg. And we don't think that the birth or the conception of Jesus would be any different. How did impregnation took place? How did the sperms reach that egg? It's not clear to us. It's not, in my personal opinion, would even invade the privacy of that couple, the privacy of Mary. So the short answer to me is there are no miracles. The conception of a human being requires the fertilization of an egg. At that time, inside of the womb of a woman, today could be extrauterine. So there are many discussions about it, but I don't think I wanted to go into that discussion right now. Personally speaking, I think the virgin, and many spiritists say so, the virginity of Mary is a symbol of purity, as a symbol of being free of sins, so to say, to be a very clean, morally speak, temple to be able to receive the Messiah. I know that I don't really answer your question, but again, it's something that deserves perhaps a whole lecture on it. Okay, Ebony?
Sarah
And again,
raised.
go ahead and speak out loud because I'm not paying attention to the chat. So just let me know if there's any questions.
Sarah raised her hand.
Okay.
One thing that I would like to point out is that they talk a lot about the virginity of Mary, but one of the things that attest that Jesus is the Messiah according to the laws, according to the provisions, everything that there were before his birth, is that he was going to be born from the genetic line of David. And the one that has the genetic line of David is Joseph, is not Mary. So it's very convenient to use both information, but both information at the same time, they do not match. So just food for thought.
Okay, yeah, interesting point.
Mhm.
Okay. Move on.
Okay.
So now you move on to what we call today Christmas, our end of the year festivities, celebrations, and a quick view of how it came to be. Going back to the Roman Empire, going back to the time of the emperor of the time, Constantine Magnum, a time, well, Rome was always in a perpetual state of war, basically, right? As it's the greatest, most powerful empire, most powerful army ever seen in, in human history, have taken so many land away from other peoples through wars. It expected that there would be a lot of people trying to get that land back, try to resist Roman invasion. And that year, that century there, that fourth century, was full of wars. And it was also a time in which the Roman society is in a state of moral decay, so to say. Something that we see very often when we have too much power and you don't know how to deal with it, how to do it, you start to get into excesses. And there was tremendous amount of excesses in Rome and those days, as we can see on the historical books of Emmanuel as well, that Rome had become the kind of, I don't know, to put the sin city, so to say, of the days, right? And some historians say that one of the factors that contribute to the fall of the empire, Constantine saw the necessity to try to put some control in it, and notes that among the so-called Christians, and even though they are called, not sure if they are called Christian at that time already, but the followers of Christ had a better moral life. So in the year 313 of the Common Era, of course, he declared in the Edict of Milan that offered religious tolerance. And with that, he decriminalized Christianity. Christianity was no longer a crime. Prior to that, you'd be arrested, you may become lunch for the lions if they caught you following Jesus, or don't assume yourself as a Christian. They had to practice their religion hidden in the underground, as we recall. So with the Edict of Milan, Christianity was no longer a crime. In 380, he came in with another edict, or the Edict of Thessalonica, and with that he made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. Some reading says the only religion. I'm not sure what word is best to use here. I'd rather use the word official religion of the Roman Empire, because the Edict of Milan offers religious tolerance. And as we know, although it became the official religion accepted by the emperor and therefore by the whole empire, most of Romans did not take Jesus right away and continue to worship their own gods and their own things, right? Even though a declaration of an emperor or had dogmatic power, were absolute, could not be challenged, could not be contested, the people would take it externally, but not internally. There is, at least from the Catholic Church, says that one of the reasons that Constantine created that edict of Thessalonica is because when he was ready to go to a very big battle, that would probably make or break the empire on that battle. And his army was that time a little bit weakened, and the other side was, I forgot the name of the other general, was trying to uptake the empire at that time. That other side was stronger, numerous soldiers and things like that. And it was the middle of the afternoon, around midday. Things got dark, and Constantino saw in the sky, a huge luminous cross with the sign that says, "With this sign you will conquer," was written in Latin. But the meaning was, "With this sign you will conquer." And Constantino thought that that was a sign that Jesus was on his side. If he was on Jesus' side, he would win. And indeed, of course, he won. They won that battle, and after that, he thought he would continue to conquer with Jesus, and therefore made the Christianity the official religion of the Roman
Elmo,
Empire. Yes.
The battle you are describing is the battle in 313 between
Correct.
Constantine and Licinius.
Correct.
The Edict of Thessalonica was a different emperor, was already Theodosius.
Okay, very good.
It was, and he made the Nicene Christianity the official religion. And actually, they persecuted those that believe in different Christian creeds. There was a Christian creed called Arianism. Yes, he kind of imposed as the official religion, and you could not practice other religions.
Yeah, that's somewhat contested. There are some authors that say that the tolerance continued.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the correction that we made, the Thessalonican was not from Constantino, was from another emperor, right?
Theodosius.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
But that was 2 times. The first one was Constantino. He was the one that liberated Christianity in 313,
right,
through an edict, and then the Thessalonic edict made it official. So there are actually 2 dates.
Yes, I presented 2 dates over here. Constantine is one who liberated Christianity as a religion, no longer criminalized.
Perfect.
So we continue now.
Okay.
Jump to the 10th century, and the Pope at the time was Alexander the First.
Okay. Pope Alexander.
Yeah, let us think back here that the emperor had this dogmatic power. He decides what's going to be the religion, what is the people supposed to do, but people can do it externally, but not internally. We know that very well. That we cannot really prohibit people from practicing what is in their hearts, inside of their own hearts or inside of their own household. And the Romans had a hard time taking Jesus, accepting Jesus, right? I mean, this a very proud people who were the most powerful, the most important empire that ever existed, and that's factual. People was very proud of the gods, to be descendant of those gods. It would be very hard to just, be humble enough and take Jesus, a common man, a man with no pedigree, a man with no genealogy, a man who was placed on a cross and died as a common criminal between two common criminals. Would not be that easy to convince the people that this is to be your God and abandon the great Jupiter, the great Apollo, the great Saturn, the great Diana, and all those gods that they worshipped. And Alexander, go ahead, Josara.
Maybe that's the interesting thing, because when they did this edict of Thessalonic, they persecuted the Arian Christian. And the Arian Christians were the one that believed that Christ was like, a prophet, was the Son of God, but not God. And so, considering everything that you're talking, Elmo, for the Romans and how they could see um, Jesus as another God, like they had in the Olympus, but not as the God. And so this is what the Thessalonican edict did. They prohibited completely this idea that it goes against the whole Holy Trinity. So Jesus had to be God, and the only God. And the Arians believed that there was a God, and Jesus was the Son of God.
Okay, thank you. So Alexander the First, the Pope at the time, recognized the need of trying to kind of increase the popularity of Jesus amongst the Roman people, to make it more acceptable uh, amongst the Roman people, to have Jesus being not only externally accepted, but also internally accepted. And again, as I said, they continue to have the traditions, at least as presented in this lecture of Raul Teixeira. And one of the very important festivities they have for the gods was called Saturnalia. That was done in the mid-December and ended on December 25th. It would be 7 days of party, and I mean party. Tremendous festivities every single day, tremendous amount of food, drinks. They would have special tires for each days, and there was an exchange of gifts associated with this celebration. Saturn was the god of agriculture, was to bring the seeds and wood and the sowing of the soil for agriculture and everything else. So understandable, there would be a very important god, because food is very important. And again, as I say, at that time, the Roman was in a pretty sad state of moral values, and those parties would go the way, tremendous amount of excesses. And then we see over here that they had special colors, and they had the red color that represent the light and the force that associated with Saturn. They have the green that represented the renewal of life. On the third day of those festivities, that dedicated to Opus was the god of femininity and fertility. And Opus is his own color, gold and silver. Do you see here any similarity with the end of the festivities of these days? But the last day, the most important day, would be December 25th. December 25th was very important, the day they dedicated to Apollo. Apollo was a pretty powerful god in the Roman mythology and also in the Greek. Is the only of the Greek gods that kept the same name. The Romans took a lot of the Greek mythology, just changing the name of the gods, but Apollo remained Apollo in both cultures. Perhaps that symbolizes the power of this god for them. And he was the god of a bunch of things. He was god of music, he was god of speech, of poetry, of arts, of many things, and including he was the god of sun and light. So the last day of the Saturnalia was dedicated to Apollo. And it's also the celebration at the time of the northern solstice. The northern solstice is the time that when the sun is the farthest from the northern hemisphere, when you have the short days, long nights, cold days. So therefore, there was kind of the absence of Apollo because it was not bringing the light. There was a belief that Apollo was responsible to, in his chariot, bring the sun back and forth, creating days and night. So in that December 25th, they would celebrate Apollo with the hope for the quick return of the long and warm days, the shorter nights, the time of planting, and all the things that is associated with the end of the cold days of the winter. And going back to Pope Alexander I, trying to create a certain popularity of Jesus amongst the Romans. He notes that one thing about Jesus is that this did not have a birthday celebration, the day of the birth of Jesus. Did not know month and day, as we don't know today. There is lots of dates placed out there that probably was this, probably was that. I'm not going to go into those dates because I don't think it matters. But Alexander the Pope dedicated December 25th to celebrate the day of the birth of Jesus. In this way, with marriage, the celebration of Apollo, a big celebration that the people would really dedicate to it, and introduced the birth of Jesus on that date. That way, that would be a lot easier to accept. And we see all the similarity between the end of year celebrations, / Christmas, with that Saturnalia. You see the colors, as we saw, remains the same. the exchange of gift. If today the gifts are going kind of out of the way with those Christmas in excess. At that time, according to Raul Teixeira, and I didn't see any other font of information on that. It would be small gifts, in a household that produced, let's say, dried fruit, would give to another family. That family perhaps produces cold cuts, would gift cold cuts to another family, and those exchanging of gifts was part of the celebration. The light, of course, associated with Apollo. There was also the lighting of the candles, the candles that is being changed to the Christmas light. So there is amount of similarity of Christmas celebration of the end of the year with Saturnalia. And we go back to the publication of Dr. Alexandre Fonseca, that in his publication he put also the same message from St. Louis that we read before, and that this what you read here now is his reflection of that message from St. Louis that I like so to read for us now.
Okay. From Alexandria Fontes de Fonseca. We can see from the words of St. Louis that while we can celebrate Christmas representing the coming of Jesus, we must also celebrate the arrival of Spiritism, which, as the promised consoler, helps us understand through reasoned faith the purpose of the incarnation of the Master, who came to teach us that the most meritorious title to be conquered by a human being is that of servant, that the most profitable activity that anyone could imagine is charity, that the purest feeling capable of forging the strongest and the most lasting bonds is love. In this, therefore, we perceive yet another aspect of Christmas, and that we hope will not only be remembered, but also experienced by all of us who have had the blessing of serving in the Spiritist field.
And I think that is the message that I like us to take from the short time that we spent together here. I don't think that we need to deny or reject the end of year festivities as we have today. We are in this world. We have to have the harmonies of Joseph. You have to see Caesar's what's Caesar's and God's what's God's. Go along with the conventional celebrations without excesses, of course. Being reasonable, of course. But keep in mind that the most important thing is the birth of Jesus. And if we can associate the birth of Jesus with Spiritism, it's because we recognize Spiritism being the revival of Christianity in its purest form. That Spiritism is indeed the promised consoler. When other Christians, institutions, and beliefs awaits the return of Jesus as an incarnate being amongst us, we recognize that Jesus is here with us. That the one individual cannot return if that individual never left. We understand that Christmas, that Jesus fulfilled his promise of being with us, of shepherd us for as long as it's needed until all of us are saved. But there is a need for us to celebrate his coming every single day of our lives. And the best way to do is to embrace this doctrine that revive his teachings and complement with the things that was a little bit too early for us to speak at the time he walked with us. So we should say happy birthday, Jesus the Christ. Interesting how Teixeira mentioned that when is the birthday of someone else, so we say that name, right? Happy birthday, João. Happy birthday, Sarah. Happy birthday, Elmo. Why you don't say it to Jesus? So that we can and should say happy birthday, Jesus, and remember that Jesus is the Christ. And we, and the Spiritist of SCGNY, speaking with Jesus, we should say, we offer to you, Jesus, the most precious gift we have, which is our best effort to learn from you, from your lessons that goes from the manger through the lessons of the cross. And with that, I thank you, and I'm open for any questions and comments.
Thank you, Elmo. Very,
Ron?
very enlightening. Very good overall presentation. You know, when I asked you to do something, when we talked about doing something in, you know, for the today's presentation, that's more or less what I had in mind without exactly knowing what I had in mind. But that you did it exactly what I thought we were supposed to have it here.
Okay, thank you, Jean. And thanks for the correction. And it's very important again. I mean, we are presenting things over here of historical value, and those things has to be as accurate as possible. And any mistakes that anyone of us makes over here, if anyone knows what's right, they should speak up and make those corrections, because it affects all of us and affects the whole doctrine as well. So I'm really grateful for all the corrections that is done over here.
Okay. So next Sunday, which is the third Sunday of the month, we're going to go back to study the Medium's book. Okay.
Okay, and any more comments, any questions? So I don't even know who's there. Let's see who's there.
Carol is there.
Okay, so Carol can make the final prayer for us, please.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Elmo. Very inspiring, very enlightening. Thank you very much also, Sarita, for reading. And thank you, everyone, for participating today. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together as brothers and sisters for our studies today and Elmo's presentation. We are grateful for the historical perspectives and especially for the moral lessons of the birth of Jesus in relationship to Spiritism, which paved the way for Allan Kardec's codification as the Great Consoler. Pardon me. Christmas was a special day of celebration in the Northern Hemisphere in the mid-December times, and was connected to Saturnalia, with Apollo being the god of sun and the light returning after the dark winter. Jesus was a god without celebration until December 25th was designated in 330 Common Era to celebrate Jesus's birth. The teachings are the greatest gift to humanity and should be remembered each day. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, the workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace and especially for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we keep the Christ light within our hearts during this season of light. And may we have a joyous holiday season and remember Christ to be the center of the Christmas celebration. May we go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.